It's exciting for us to be able to present to you guys the white paper of the Bitcoin Beach and really how the project got started. And mostly because we want people to be encouraged that you can also replicate and do these things. And I think if you see specifically our initial white paper, you'll realize if somebody as tech challenged and naive as us could instigate a project like this, any of you could do it in a much better job. So I encourage you to go to the Bitcoin Beach Twitter page and kind of pinned at the top is the original white paper, and then the follow-up that we put out as we saw communities around the world that really wanted to replicate what was happening in El Salvador, and they kept coming to us and saying, hey, help us, we want a roadmap, or we want you to basically take us under the Bitcoin Beach umbrella. And our response was, no, this should be decentralized, just like Bitcoin. And so we want to help, but this is something that should not be top-down. This should be something that springs up in the individual communities that you are in. And so our original white paper was basically a pretty simple idea. We wanted to create a circular Bitcoin economy to really transform just the economic outlook of the kind of poor communities. Originally, it was supposed to be in a place called Punta Mongo, and then we started there, and then also in El Zonte is where it really took root. But we saw in this community kind of a cycle of violence and just desperation of parents feeling like they couldn't earn an income to support their families, many of them leaving to the US, their kids growing up without their parents around, and because of that, susceptible to the gangs. And so there was this kind of conveyor belt into the gang in the country in general, but specifically in El Zonte, that we saw all these young, promising people entering the gangs, and because of that, there was less economic opportunity overall because businesses were fleeing, and so you saw this cycle kind of perpetuate itself. And so we had an idea of we could come in and use Bitcoin as a financial tool to try to break that cycle. So it was a very, very simple plan, was to start paying the young people in Bitcoin to incentivize them to do well in school, to keep them out of the gangs, and to make sure they were a productive part of the community, and then also get them thinking about the first time of what is money and really the role money plays in society of being able to build a future for yourself. If you're not saving, if you don't have that capital, you're always subject to the whims of the surrounding society. And so we started that just as maybe 12 kids, I think, initially. And we saw unexpected results. It really transformed their ways of looking at life. It got them saving for the first time. And that was what eventually led to the adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender in El Salvador. And so the white paper we're going to present today is kind of the second version, which was kind of setting out and giving a roadmap for other people that wanted to replicate what was happening. So I'm just going to walk through a few points, just kind of do it pretty quickly. So the first thing was to really look at what the motivations are. What are the needs in the community? So in a place like El Zonte, they're going to be very different than a place like Lugano. For the people in El Zonte, they didn't have access to any type of financial system. They had no way to buy things online. They often had to pay much more than anybody else to bring money in through remittances. They couldn't buy anything digitally. And so we saw for them, this was basically became a bank to them. And this introduced them to being part of the global financial system, and also for the first time realizing that they could stay in El Salvador and earn a wage on the global stage that was much higher than they could earn locally, but still stay and be a part of their community. And so that's what we encourage everybody is make sure you make it relevant to what is happening there. In most of the world, they're not going to care that much about decentralization, at least initially, or protecting your privacy or those sorts of things. For me, those things are important, but for most people that are just struggling today, those are not going to be the things that motivate them to adopt a new financial system. So you need to make sure that you find the pain points and find the way that Bitcoin helps them address those. The second thing we encourage people is to really make sure that you have a strong team. It's crucial that you have people that are not just coming from the outside, that have priorities that don't align with the community. We see that sometimes people want to come in and they say, oh, there's this poor community. We're going to come push on them what we think they need. You need to be there listening. What are the real needs and how can Bitcoin help the people? And really, it helps so much if you're working with people in the community that already have that trust and that relationship, because that takes really years to build. And so if you can start from that basis, it's much more helpful. So we always encourage people, find an NGO or a local community group that's already operating there, help them understand Bitcoin, and kind of move from there. Another important element is to make sure that you have the correct technology stack, because people can become overwhelmed if you're just telling them like, oh, you need to, hold your keys and have cold storage and, have everything in a cold wallet. Do I have the clicker? Oh, okay, sorry. Thank you. Okay, never mind. To make sure that you have the right technology stack, because people can be kind of overwhelmed with feeling like, okay, we need to teach them everything up front. You can start them off with a custodial wallet. I know that's an unpopular thing to say, especially at a Bitcoin conference, but you need to use what works. And so you start them off with the least friction way of using Bitcoin, and then bring them along, step by step. If you try to come in with everything at the get-go, you're really going to overwhelm them, and they're going to kind of throw their hands up. And so we kind of learned as we went along that you really have to be incremental with things. Also, just to make sure that it's not only about Bitcoin. For any project to work, Bitcoin really has to be a tool that is helping other elements within the community. And so for us at Bitcoin Beach, and everybody can spend to be different, we focused on 4 different pillars. One was education, just because that's important in general for their prospects in the world. So we were pushing education, English classes, other things that tied in. Physical activity, the spiritual life, so working with the local churches in the community. And then also just the technology that they can, once they start embracing Bitcoin, it opens them up to all these other potentials as far as work in the world. So we've seen people in El Zonte go from being construction workers that are making $12 a day to learning the code and open to salaries that will get into the hundreds of thousands in dollars in the future. So they're opening these pathways. So we encourage people to focus and realize that Bitcoin is just a tool. Like, it's not the end goal is just getting people to accept Bitcoin, but showing them how it can change their life. The other, sorry, pull my notes up here. Just making sure that how you're going to gather traction in the community. We saw that sometimes incentivizing the stores to start accepting Bitcoin in the beginning, they needed a little extra incentive. And so we would give them like a 20% bonus if they accepted Bitcoin. And initially, that's what it took for them to start accepting. But then it got to the point where other stores that weren't participating were realizing that they were losing out. There was all these people earning Bitcoin in the community that wanted to spend in Bitcoin, and so they started coming to us. So it really is focusing on what those needs so that you can get that traction. And we always tell people, always go smaller. When in doubt, narrow down your focus, specifically your geographic focus. It's very, very important to have not just a shotgun effort where you have one store, here, and then 20 minutes away, another store. You will never start a circular Bitcoin economy if it can't flow and circulate. So we tell people, even on one street, start in one neighborhood and make sure it's more important that you have 3 stores on one street that are accepting than to have 20 in, a country. You really want to focus local, and then it naturally grows out from there. So we started in El Zonte, and we really focused on that community to now there's 100 plus businesses in this small community that accept Bitcoin, and it ripples out to the surrounding communities, and it's so much easier than if you do that shotgun approach. And I know that's human nature. We want to say we want to go bigger and we want it to be everywhere. But the smaller that you hone in, really the more impact that you're going to have. And then the other thing that a lot of people kind of miss and don't realize is just it's important, the marketing of it. We live in a world where marketing is important. And in order for Bitcoin to progress and for people to want to adopt, they have to understand what it's doing out there in the world. So we challenge people to make your story unique. Make sure there's something about your project that the press is going to be interested in. From the get-go, we had this plan of how we were going to roll this out, why we thought the media would be interested in this kind of crazy idea of Bitcoin circulating in a community. And then we reached out to them. We made sure that it was easy for them to come to El Zonte, to see what was happening, that they didn't take our word for it, that they came and they verified what was happening, that we were out there on Twitter, not in a professional way. If anybody follows me on Twitter, you'll see my spelling's horrible, my grammar's horrible, but you just put it out there that this is what's happening, and it doesn't need to be polished. It needs to be authentic. People want to see videos. They want to see what is actually taking place on the ground. And so I encourage all of you to take a look at our white paper. It's much more thorough than we can cover here today, but it really outlines just the simple steps that in any community you can roll out a project that's not going to replicate Bitcoin Beach, but it's going to take learnings from the things that worked for us and didn't, and adapt it to your local community so that it really services the needs of your community. And that's what I always kind of leave people with and encourage them. Make sure that it's relevant. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Make sure it's relevant for your community. And Roman's going to share a little bit about what that looks like for us.
The whole point, guys, is if we can do it, you can do it, right? So when Stefano asked the question, who have been in El Salvador already? Yeah, I remember you, yeah. Who wanna come? Yeah, Daniel, you have to come. If you don't come this year, I'm gonna get mad. So I keep invite him. I say, you can stay with me. Have a good hammock. I have a bed for you. So I want to touch because like sometimes when we come to the conference, like we hear a lot of things, but it's hard to understand in like how really the things are taking place in our communities, right? So I'm going to touch a little bit like hope for local communities, values for countries, tools for progress. I'm not going to go in all of these, but I'm going to, yeah. So bringing hope to Bitcoin Beach. This is where I'm going to focus. Bringing hope to Bitcoin Beach. This is going to be the trailer of the movie that was released this year about the history of Bitcoin Beach. We're going to play in later. This is really important. El Zonte, a place to dream and build. El Zonte is like a small town, like between 3,000 and 3 to 5,000 inhabitants, that when I was a kid, everyone was dreaming to live, you know? No one want to stay. Like, the opportunities that we had were like to become a fisherman, to be a farmer, or trying to get to the USA, illegal. Working there to trying to help our families back to El Salvador. Financial inclusion, banking, unbanked communities. 90% of the people in El Zonte were unbanked before Bitcoin. That means, well, 70% of the Salvadorian people didn't have also access to the financial system. Access that probably all of you guys here have since you are 18 years old. Like credit cards, paying digitally, having bank accounts, buying assets, you know, creating your credit, then go to the banks and get credits to buy homes, you know, building your future. Someone that is unbanked, you can understand that it's really like a little what you can do where we're living now. But with Bitcoin, now they can transact digitally, they can invest in assets. You understand that Bitcoin is money for us, but for the majority of the people around the world, Bitcoin is an asset. It's like buying homes, investing in, like stocks, investing in companies. But if you are unbanked, what access to that type of asset you can have? It's nothing, you know. Bitcoin is that asset that is for everyone. It's for you. It's for people that are unbanked in El Salvador, or for people that are unbanked in Africa. But we all have access to buy Bitcoin. And also, like, one of the biggest bad that the country had was that we have like a lot of Salvadorian people living in the USA that they send remittances to their families in El Salvador. So, and with Bitcoin, they can send money almost for free. Community growth, education, and small business development. This is important because when people feel included in the economic, they help to build strong communities, you know. Access to the global Bitcoin economies is enabling, driving increased interest in productive endeavors. Education, entrepreneurship, home ownership. This is Ismael. He's a young guy. I think he's 22 years old now. He's a lifeguard, a professional lifeguard. He speaks English. He have Bitcoin, and he's a home owner in El Sonte now. 22 years old. He have a mortgage. Well, the history is a little bit more longer. There is another NGO that is building homes in El Salvador, and short, long history, he get access to this home and he have a mortgage in the home and he's paying with Bitcoin. But that is possible thanks to Bitcoin now, you know. So that's huge. Probably you don't understand him, but imagine like here seeing like in Lugano, like a young guy with 22 years old that already have a home here. Even here will be big, you know. So opportunities at home. This is really, really important, like keeping talents, youth from leaving the country. That's what I was saying, like since I'm a kid, I just seen like people leaving the country, you know. If you have the chance, you need to leave because El Salvador was not the place to dream. There were not opportunities to have better jobs, to have better incomes. And now I can say that it's working. The people are dreaming in El Salvador. People are having more opportunities in our country. This is like a small example that you can say how Bitcoin is helping people in El Salvador. This is a young guy from El Sonte offering Spanish lessons to everyone around the world that want to connecting in a Zoom call and want to practicing and learning Spanish. And you know how they will pay him? With Bitcoin. So that's probably is like a small example, right? But that's like if that guy have like five classes of 1 hour of Spanish every day, that's are like $50, you know, when the normal wage of a salary in El Salvador maybe is $15 a day, you know. So that is a huge, huge, huge opportunity. And of course, Bitcoin is for everyone, right? Bitcoin is a tool, is the most inclusive technology that we ever had, that we all can benefit from it. It doesn't matter like if you're born in Europe, if you're born in Africa, if you're born in El Salvador, Bitcoin is for everyone. And Bitcoin represent and will represent different things for everyone, but we all benefit from the same technology, you know, and this is beautiful. And I want to close with this quote of Jack Dorsey, that he's saying that many of the things that we're gonna use in the future are building now in El Salvador, you know, and it feels so amazing that we are just the smaller country in America, leading the way, you know, leading this financial revolution that we're living, and we feel so proud. It's something that it back to our like we grew up as a Salvadorian, and when we were traveling around the world, it's like, you're Salvadorian. Like, a lot of people were like, yeah, I'm Salvadorian, but I born in California, like, and now we feel proud to be Salvadorians, because it feels good to be in the first place for the first time for something good that is happening, and it's beautiful to see this and see in our country, or small country, providing that hope and freedom, not just for our people in our country, but for a lot of people around the world, I can tell you one of the things that impressed me that I never imagined, I never thought I will see a lot of people from all over the world considering El Salvador as the place that they want to raise their kids, as the place that they want to have a second home, a plan B, because we all know that the world is moving into direction that we don't feel, exciting. Like, people are losing that hope and that freedom that used to be attached to Europe, Canada, United States, And as a human beings, we're looking for that hope and freedom, and it's beautiful that people are coming to El Salvador and finding that hope and freedom in our small country, So I highly recommending guys to come and check it out, because everyone talk about El Salvador in different ways, and more the media it used to have like a strong opinion of what's happening in El Salvador, But who still trusts the media? No, exactly. No, I'm trying to that you don't feel alone if you, But exactly. But there are people that still believing what the media is saying, And when they're talking about Bitcoin, they're talking about what's happening in El Salvador, they're not saying the truth. So my message is, don't trust, verify. Come and check. Do a vacation. It's a beautiful country. You can go and hiking a volcano, you can surfing, we have good food, beautiful people. Come on, guys. And it's a small country, Come and check. And once you are there, you can have your own conclusion. Then you can have a strong opinion and say, like, hey, I went there. What people are saying about Bukele is not true. What people are saying about Bitcoin is not true. Pupusas are super good. So, yeah, that's what can I tell you guys? What can I incentivize you? Come and check, like as a Bitcoiner, we have this strong say, right, Daniel? Don't trust, verify, And I want to play like a small video about this movie that is covering the whole history of Bitcoin Beach and how everything started. I highly recommend you can watch it. It was released this year. You can find it almost in all the streaming media. It's called Dare to Dream.
My pre-arrival impressions of El Salvador were probably similar to many people. I never really heard much about the country other than it was a dangerous place.
Juan es como mi hermano, crecimos juntos y los dos venimos de una lucha similar.
Esta era mi casa. We were living in the street for 7 years.
So this meeting was one of the weirdest meetings I've ever been to in my life. The donor wanted to remain anonymous.
Todo El Salvador puede tener acceso a una cuenta electrónica por primera vez.
He wanted to see a true Bitcoin circular economy take shape.
It all started with the people here on the ground.
It came from that dream to change this community.
Para mí Bitcoin es la herramienta más inclusiva para la humanidad.
Aquí no solo nos inspiramos en ellos, si funciona en una comunidad, lo podemos hacer país.
But I see Bitcoin as more of a tool that can bring fairness into the world.
We're just humans, and everyone deserves the same conditions.
We are an industrial-aged culture transitioning into a digital age, and we can't even begin to imagine where this takes us.
If you have an hour this week, you can learn 100 songs on the piano by learning just 4 chords.
That's it, that's it. And we did a panel now before we came here, and the whole point about this is like, you are the change that you want to see. So if you want to start a Bitcoin meetup, if you want to start a Bitcoin circular economy, if you want to start like bringing more awareness, educating about people about Bitcoin, or if you want to work in a Bitcoin company, well, this is the time to do it, you know? Stand up and do it. There is not going to be a plan. Never is going to be the right moment to do it. So I highly recommend that you follow all the Bitcoin circular economies that are happening now, you know, around the world, like Bitcoin Ekasi, like Peru, Brazil, Guatemala, El Salvador, you know. And if you want to support, well, it's time to support too, you know, to see Bitcoin everywhere. So thank you.